Okay, this is an easy fly to tie. You need a little thread base. I'm going to tie one on a 12, and then I will go back and tie one on a 14. I'm trying to get you guys to realize that that smaller hook is not that tough. I'm not sure. This looks like an awfully long size 12 hook to me. But I just lay a thread base back to the bend. Man, I'm awkward today. Get rid of my tag end here. And I need one of these that I think this is, okay, you can see by the way this bends that this is pretty thick stuff. This is what I would want to use on this hook. Now I had this one little piece is off of one, like I showed you before, the long, thin, the ideal kind of hackle. And if you have one of those, I can tie it on at the front end. If I have one that looks like this, wider at where my finger is than at the tip, I would have to tie it off at the other end. The other end will work fine because I'm not going to be using the stuff down by my finger. But notice how I've stripped the hackle and all I've got is the stem here. Excuse me. When I tie that on, I'm going to leave some of that stem available for my first wrap or two. I want that first wrap or two to be that stem. Can you see I have just enough down that first wrap is just going to be the stem. It's not going to involve the hackle. So the first thing we put on is the hackle, because that's the last thing we're going to wrap forward. There is another fly in our pattern book that is a fun fly, and it's very similar to this. It's called, oh, I went brain dead, crackleback. It's very similar to this, but it uses a peacock curl a little bit differently, and it involves using some yellow, which kind of adds a little bit, but I have caught just as many with this Griffith'S Gnat. Now I've got a pretty good wad here, and I'm going to kind of eyeball those. I can see one right away that one doesn't have near as much cover on it, so that's going to be a waste. I'm going to see if I've got another one like that. I got another one. This one, that if I can find it again, I think I can use those. Okay. Now I've got to have some waste at this end. All this waste up here, this stuff, I don't want to even mess with trying to wrap that. So I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to lay that to give my body a little bit more bulk. I'm going to lay that on top, and I'm going to make a couple of easy wraps over that to get it on my hook, and then I'm going to lean it toward me so it kind of faces me, and we're going to do what we've done before. I'm going to rope this, and when you rope this, you want the first wraps of that thread to be as close to the hook as you can get. If not, you're going to have a little buckle bulge when you start wrapping. So I'm going to just rope that down. I may have to go back and rope a little bit more because this is a pretty big hook. But I've got quite a bit of peacock curl here, so that my body is going to correspond to the size 12 hook. And then I'm just going to very carefully start wrapping that. I want a nice full peacock body, and I may even have to go back. I've run out of my roping. I'm going to have to rope a little bit more. And you've heard me say this before, you don't want to get too close to the eye. So I am going to rope just a little bit more. I want to get maybe one more turn for the body. And kind of have to unrope it to tie it off. Now I'm going to hold this up to where I can go up and over, and I'm leaving a little bit of space for the head. And then I can trim this excess off. Okay? And I like to do a couple of what I call insurance wraps. I don't want that to come undone. So I'm going to do a couple of insurance wraps, and then I will do a little half hitch right there. Okay? Now the next part is what makes or breaks the appearance of this fly. I'm going to grab my hackle pliers here because I don't have a very long one. And I'm hoping I can get my first turn to be vertical to the hook. By the way and that's going to work pretty well. Okay, so I'm sorry I haven't used the rotary. I don't have enough room up here with this camera to do this the way I'd prefer. And you can make those wraps pretty close together. And then I'm going to get rid of I'm going to bring this over again, just over and drop it 2 or 3 times. And then I'm going to trim the rest of that hackle out. And if you have a little bit of stuff up front, now's the time to trim it. Okay? And all that's left is tying that off and making a neat little head and whip finishing. But by making sure that first wrap is stem only, notice how I got a nice 90-degree start at the rear of the fly. And it took me a lot of years to figure out, I'm just a slow learner, how to avoid having all the hackle bend from here back over the back of the bend. But this seems to work for me, and I think it would work for you. But that is that's a pretty good representation of a Griffith'S Gnat on a size 12.